Hello guys, Sir Grandelot here, an update video regarding my Wraithlord Necromancer build now that I managed to take down Aberoth and I'm grinding Corruption past 500. I made a few changes in my build, mostly when it comes to the gear, and because I switched from my previous version, which was focused on health, to the current one, which is focused on ward for sustain. I like ward as a mechanic. In order to do the switch, I had to replace quite a few pieces of equipment, well, two actually. And these gloves with the mod that gives us ward in exchange of health, as well as a fairly nice Exsanguinos that is going to be excellent for this build for the time being. The issue was for me that my damage output was good enough, but the sustain was terrible. With 3000 hit points, especially in a fight against Aberoth, that, you know, it's the first time for everyone, I was getting farmed relentlessly. Switching to ward, this build having roughly 5500, sometimes a bit more ward than that during the fight, gave me much better sustain, and once I learned how to dodge the two dangerous attacks, you know, the melee nuke and then the purple Kamehameha, the fight was not particularly difficult. I also switched from the unique here, the sword, the Epoch, and the set piece here, to these two, you know, epic pieces, mainly because I dropped this one, which is quite amazing for my build. And this gives me a bit of room to work when it comes to resistances for the catalyst. I'm using this as a base, but it's not the one that I would like to have long term. I would like to eventually switch to the other kind of catalyst, the one that increases ward threshold. I have not found a decent one yet. This one has a ton of minion damage, void resistance is good, elemental resistances are fine. You can tell from my resistances that I'm a bit overcapped, but at the same time it gives me a little bit of room to play with when it comes to the rest of the equipment. And what other changes did I make? This one is the same. I'm looking forward to the day that the game will be kind enough to give me a legendary potential hat, but the day is not here yet. And I'm using this piece, which is fairly nice. This belt, which is amazing, so I kinda gave up the idea of eventually using the mod here that generates zombies, just because this belt is so good for my build. And here, this one is not very good. Like, the base is not good for me, the stats kinda fit, but they're not particularly good either. I'm looking forward to a ring similar to this, you know, the same base with ideally intelligence, minion damage, and I guess some health and poison resistance, because my poison resistance is a disaster right now. I talked about the boots, that we want this one with the teleport mod. Or maybe I didn't. Am I having a stroke? I might be having a stroke. I'm using this node, which makes the minion unable to move. And combined with this mod, you can actually make them move. But it means that I cannot just start using this like that. Like, it would be nice, look at the ward, like, oh, juicy. Yeah, but it becomes a build that you leave your Wraithlord behind to die all the time, and you need to resummon it every screen, so it's not really workable. While on the other hand, if you do this, the Wraithlord is there, oh, the Wraithlord is here. It's much better. And this build only summons the Wraithlord and a couple of Wraiths, so even if you have a lower tier mod that only teleports around 3 minions, it's fine. Like, higher tier would be better for the extra minion damage, but it's not that necessary. And I think I talked about every piece of equipment. Oh, this one, look at... Mouse, could you stop moving when I put it down on the table? Okay. It's unfortunate that the first mod that he created was increase minion health, and I was super excited, and then the other three were absolute garbo. And I'm thinking eventually to use some runes of ascension on a bunch of relics, because the chances of getting one of these from Runes of Ascension is pretty high, and you know, good resistances, minion damage. There is quite a lot of things that I could be finding from an ambition of an erased that rolls better than this, but I don't want to force it because it's not super high priority. And these things, health and health and health and health. On day one I dropped this one and I was super excited, and then all the other idols were absolutely abysmally bad. Most of my elemental resistances are kept or over kept, like cold and fire, meaning that most of my idols are missing, let's say 20 hit points each that they're missing on a mid roll, which means 2, 4, 6, 7. I'm missing 140 hit points to add here, plus all the percentage off of that. So simply with the slightly better idol rolls, I would be in the, I guess, 3,100, 3,200 hit point range, which means a ton of extra ward. But you know, it's Circle of Fate. I forgot to mention it earlier, but it's Circle of Fate, so I'm at the mercy of the RNG gods. Skills, I believe nothing has changed from my previous build, the one that I was using a few days ago. I will not go too much into the discussion of the skill points. I lost a few points here from the Summon Wraith, because the unique that I was using earlier was giving me some extra points here. I honestly do not remember what I dropped. I honestly do not. Probably these 2 points, which is not particularly relevant. And maybe I had an extra point here or something like that. Yeah, you know, nothing particularly important. Because I have a +4 on the chest, I managed to essentially max all of these nodes. All of these nodes that are very useful for the build. This one is useless, because the build automatically crits on the Wraithlord with every attack. So 2 points are enough. If I had to drop 1 point, because I had a +3 instead of a +4, I don't know what I would be dropping. Maybe 1 point here, maybe, but it would be painful. So ideally you want a +4 on this build, but it's not that necessary. Like, you don't lose anything that is necessary in terms of mechanics. You're just dropping a little bit of necrotic damage for the Wraithlord. Anything else? Oh, the passives. Passives, I believe there are about 10 to 15 points. That depends a lot on what you prefer and what your build needs. I have 24 points here because I wanted some extra damage, but I could easily drop 2 points here, 2 points here, and stay at 20 in the accurate and have 4 extra points to invest in other things. 10 points here because intelligence means ward and mana regeneration is always nice. 79 points here. There are some that are not particularly necessary. Like, I could show you the ward, the ward. Like, now I'm at 5573 and it's pretty stable. If I go to Dude here and I tell him, look, I want to give up this. See, it starts to go down a little bit. So if you have some other source of ward generation, you can easily, you know, drop a point here. It's not particularly important. And I basically kept at max all the nodes that increase the damage or the attack speed of the minions. And if I had an extra 4 points, I'm not sure. I would just be looking at things that increase damage from the minion here and there, or increase intelligence for me. I really wanted to make it here because these nodes are 2 intelligence per point, but there isn't anything super amazing in here that made me think, oh my god, these points are so well invested here. Basically, I would have to waste sort of a bunch of points here for some extra health, just to get closer to this, and then each point here is 2 points of intelligence. I don't know if it's something that is going to be necessary at higher what is it called, at higher corruption, in order to have more ward and increase survivability. It's possible, and if that was the case, I would drop some points here, if possible, based on, you know, war retention requirement. 4 points here. I would probably reduce this node a bit, because 3 points are necessary in order to unlock this, but from 4 to 10 is just a little bit of extra damage. And if necessary, I would drop up to 7 points here, some points here, 4 points here, trying to reach this node that have a ton of extra intelligence and ward, but it's something that we will eventually find out once we reach much higher corruption. And I believe in terms of passives, skills, and equipment, I mentioned everything. So I will have a very, very quick trip to the monolith that I'm grinding, just to, you know, clear one to show you what's going on. I don't even know why I went for the teleport. But I'm recording this on the 20th of July. And yesterday I had a quick stream of a couple of hours during which I basically spent the whole time grinding this timeline with this exact build. So if you want to have an extended idea of what this build feels like with this equipment, which I would say the Exsanguinous was very lucky, but the rest of the build isn't particularly esoteric. Like, there is nothing like, oh, 4 legendary potential with everything being perfect. Like, I mean, I show you my gear. Apart from the Exsanguinous and maybe the suffixes of the weapon, everything else is pretty mid to S. So, slay enemies to find the dude, kill the dude. Very simple. You summon the dude, you buff the dude, and then you move around the map and you look for the stuff that you need to kill. Damage output at 500 corruption, very good. Survivability, okay. I have not had any issue surviving to cheap damage. The only problem that you might have noticed if you had a look at my defenses screen, if I showed it, I don't remember if I showed it. Before I forget, can you give me 5 seconds, game? Okay, thank you. Before I forget, this is the defense tab. You may have noticed this poison resistance is a little bit low. Yesterday during the stream my only death was because my brain decided to sit on a pool of poison, and I basically got insta-gibbed with no chance of reacting to it. It was just too much damage too quickly. Hopefully I will manage to snipe some extra poison resistance here and there. I could even use a blessing for poison resistance. Oh, I didn't show the blessings, now that I think about it. Blessing that I'm using, irrelevant. Here I have health. There is another blessing from this timeline, and I can show you the difference, actually, now that we have an easy way to respec. From that same timeline, there is a blessing that improves ward threshold. And I want to show you how much of a difference it makes. The one I'm using right now is this one, 68 health. And the one with the threshold is this one. Look at my ward. Let's switch. Now look at my ward. That's how much difference it makes. This one is actually a tiny bit better because you can see ward dropped just a few points if I go with ward decay threshold instead of hit points, whereas with hit points it's here in a stable way. It depends a lot on the rest of the gear as well, so don't think that, oh, I really need health here, Sir Grindelot says so. No, with my build, health here is marginally better. There is a chance that your build will benefit more from the from this thing, from the ward decay node. It depends on the build, the equipment, and all this sort of stuff. All of this stuff is irrelevant. This one is good. There are a few other decent alternatives from this timeline, but World 249 World Decay Threshold is pretty nice. That one is useless. This one fits my build well. Ideally, later on, I would prefer armor. I have not farmed this timeline very much, so I'm sticking to chance to apply frailty on hit because the other one is useless for me. And crit strike avoidance, just because with one crit strike avoidance suffix in my equipment, plus that I'm at 106, which is good enough. And I will do one more. Can I fight the boss? Do I have enough thingy to fight the boss, or am I far from that? I'm a bit far from that. And I already have 3 shades of Ouroboros. Then I will just clear another monolith, because the previous one was very quick, so let's do another one. Just to have a more comprehensive showcase, so to speak. But again, let me remind you, there is a very long 2-hour video of me doing nothing but this. And getting some decent loot, by the way. Got a bunch of legendary potential through useful things and some nice legendary potential. One unique problem is that none of them were for this build. That's a little bit of a bummer. But, you know, it is what it is. Eventually I will try other builds for this league. We just started. It's a very minor thing, but because what I'm using on the feet, the experimental mod that teleports minion, has the lower tier of it, I can only teleport 3 minions at a time. So if I have Wraithlord and 2 Wraiths, that's fine. But if I have Wraithlord, 2 Wraiths and some zombies, it's not very okay. So because it's important to refresh the buff on the Wraithlord every 10 seconds-ish, what I like to do is, after I teleport, and Wraithlord and Wraiths are with me, I summon the zombies. The Wraithlord eats them, he refreshes his buff. I do not have a Wraithlord right now. He got insta-gib. Refresh his buff. So that if I need to teleport away, the Wraithlord will not be left back. It happens every now and then that, although the Wraithlord eating the zombies happens very quickly, if you summon zombies and then instantly teleport, it can happen that you bring with you the zombies and the Wraiths and not the Wraithlord. And it can be a little bit of a problem, especially if you are against a boss or a bunch of elites and you're expecting your Wraithlord to one-shot them, and instead your Wraithlord is on the other side of the map. So again, summon zombies. All the buffs are still up. Can keep going. It's a build that the Wraithlord himself has been nerfed significantly because the buff from eating other minions no longer stacks. Some minions have been buffed, but it's irrelevant for this build because you're never using those minions, they get eaten automatically. But a thing that really helped this character, for me at least, is the dodge. Because this character is a sitting duck. Like, you deal no damage, you have no survivability outside of your hit points and ward, you don't have any cooldown that helps you outside of transplant to... I don't know if I have one already. Outside of transplant to move away from danger. And so what you're doing with this build is you summon Wraithlord, teleport it around, meanwhile you just avoid incoming damage. And adding this has actually helped me so much in staying alive, because it's true that it's not an iframe. Like, you're not invulnerable while you do this, but it gives you an extra ability to get away from enemies, dodge incoming stuff, step away from pools of garbage that are on the ground that are going to damage you, and all this sort of stuff, in addition to transplant. So, although the Wraithlord itself has been nerfed, meaning that it deals significantly less damage, the survivability of the character has improved quite a bit. Because for some builds, for every build, this is useful. You know, doing a jumperino around every now and then. But especially for a character that has nothing to do for the whole fight outside of staying alive and avoiding stuff that is being thrown at you, this is very, very, very useful. I cannot express how many times doing this saved my ass with this character. After killing Aberoth, and I believe, as I mentioned earlier, the only time that I died was there was a pool of poison on the ground, my brain ignored it, and I died in half a second without jumping out of it. If I noticed that there was some green goo on the ground, I would have block, save. But I didn't do it at the time because I was either checking the chat or I was checking some loot, I'm not sure. But, you know, every now and then we have brain farts, which is the reason why I will never play hardcore ever in my life. So that's the update for the build. There will be a link to Last Epoch tools, because I uploaded it there. I believe that this one is better than that, yes. Yeah. And I really want to feed this to the Nemesis next time that I find it to see what I will get. It's going to be funny. That will be all for the update. The goal for this build is to try to make it to 1000. And with the Warlock during patch 1.0, I had an extremely smooth sailing until, I would say, Corruption 800, 850. And then it became much harder. Now, luckily, we have some tools, like the... I will never remember the name. I'm absolutely terrible with names. It's not like I'm suffering from some degenerative condition, but I'm very bad with names of items in games. What is it called? Glyph of Envy. Glyph of Envy. Now we have this thing to quickly be able to farm the boss, and we can throw this in there to generate the shades, which means that if at high corruption you have a bad fight against a Shade of Orobis and you die and you waste all the shade stacks, you can very quickly fill them up in a few minutes and go back. Whereas until the last patch, if you died to a Shade of Orobor or whatever it's called, because you made a small mistake or bad luck or whatever, it was a huge setback. You had to farm the timeline for a very long time again. So from that point of view, huge improvement. And if I can manage to make it to 1000 corruption with the Lich, the next class that I want to build is either going to be a Void Knight or this is a Necromancer, it's not a Lich. The next class that I would like to make is either a Lich or a Void Knight. I would like to play the Lich because I've not tried it yet. I already brought the Void Knight to 1000 last patch, but I keep dropping stuff for the Void Knight over and over again. I have multiple World Splitters, even with legendary potential and good rolls in the stash. I basically have... In every slot, apart from one, I have everything that I will need to build a very good Bonkerino Void Knight. So I will probably have to look into it and see how to build it. 85, so it will take a while, but we shall see. Anyway, that is all. I've been rambling around a lot. Bye, guys. Take care.